This is the sound of a dying universe. All around you, the fabric of reality is tearing itself apart. Time is growing erratic, and from other dimensions, you can hear the screams of those whose fates are tied to collapsing worlds. You've just stumbled upon the horrifying truth about the multiverse. It's not often we talk about the death of the universe, but in today's episode, we were going to look at some scary multiverse theories that suggest it could happen sooner than we think. And if that wasn't bad enough, it could start with our world being destroyed. As an intrepid explorer of the great beyond, it falls to you to piece together what's happening. The clues point to a terrible conclusion. The multiverse is collapsing, and there may be nothing anyone can do to stop it. What is the multiverse? We're talking about a concept here that even science is yet to fully understand. Some believe the multiverse is the entirety of existence, containing infinite realities within it. Others believe we only exist on one of these planes of reality. So let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that the multiverse does exist. That means there are other versions of you watching this video on another version of YouTube in another version of our reality. Welcome to the club. And since this is such a large and complex network of realities, it would make sense that there are natural laws that govern its behavior, with so many variables at play. However, scientists have had trouble coming up with exactly what these laws might be. And because they're dealing with something theoretical, things get weird really fast. There are a few different scenarios that arise when you ask what would happen if the multiverse did collapse. Most involve catastrophic damage to multiple realities, but some could actually be quite pleasant. It all depends on where you find yourself. So how do you even destroy infinite realities? According to one theory, you pull them all together and force them to collide. Basically, this would mean every planet and star in the observable universe would begin moving towards each other and crash into each other. This would effectively wipe out every single thing that exists in the multiverse. And if that sounds insane, well, so does the theory. Most physicists agree that if you were to compress the universe down to a smaller size, it wouldn't necessarily result in the destruction of everything. They point to the fact that stars would continue to function normally no matter how small you made the universe. Also, if all the galaxies are infinitely big, then there's no way you could shrink them all down without literally crushing them. So that theory goes out the window right away. But another idea proposes that instead of pulling all the universes together, you push them apart. As each universe moves away from each other, everything would begin to slow down, until all movement would eventually cease. Even light, which travels at an infinite speed, would eventually succumb to the expanding gap between realities and become unobserved. When you can't see anything anymore, you might as well be dead. But hold on a minute, can you even push something away that's infinite in size? And if not, why can't you pull it together like in the previous scenario? Well, the answer lies in the difference between finite and infinite. You can take a number and add one to it. That's how you increase a finite quantity. But infinity isn't a number. It's a concept of something that never ends. To increase infinity, you need to increase it by an infinite amount. Since that's impossible, you can never truly expand the multiverse by pushing universes further apart. Or maybe you can. The heat death of the universe is a concept that's much more accepted by scientists. It's the eventual fate of our universe, according to physics. But it doesn't spell the end for the entire multiverse. Scientists predict that our universe will expand indefinitely, but all the energy within it will eventually run out. Stars will go out like candles in the wind, and all that will remain is cold, dark space. While this scenario paints a grim picture of what will happen to our own universe, it doesn't really address what happens to the multiverse. There are infinite possibilities out there, but the odds of any of them happening seem pretty low. So, now that we've established that the heat death won't destroy the multiverse, let's talk about some ways that it could. For starters, if there's such a thing as antimatter, which there probably is, then somewhere in the multiverse there's an anti-you watching this video. If you and your evil counterpart were to meet, you would both be annihilated. Yes, we know it as a comic book trope to have good and evil counterparts who can destroy each other with a touch. But the physics behind it makes sense. When you get down to the smallest particles, it seems like there's a particle for every possible outcome. If you're made of matter, then your evil twin is probably made of antimatter. And we're not talking about regular old antimatter that can be used in bombs. We're talking about a fundamental restructuring of reality. Everything your evil twin knows, feels, and experiences is probably the exact opposite of your own life. The food he eats tastes horrible to you. His friends are your enemies. Even time flows backward for him. Your evil twin is a nightmare made real, the dark side of your soul brought into existence by some cosmic accident. And if the two of you ever met, you would both die. A lot of people would consider that to be a win-win situation, but the implications for the rest of the multiverse could be devastating. Some theorize that the meeting of two opposites could cause a ripple effect across all of reality, destroying countless lives. In a multiverse full of infinite possibilities, there are likely an infinite number of evil counterparts out there waiting for their evil twin to meet them so they can fade into non-existence. And if that happens, who knows what kind of chaos it could cause. It might start with the heat death of the universe. After all, scientists theorize that before our Big Bang, our universe was in a state of non-existence. It was nothing more than a quantum fluctuation of energy. Then suddenly the Big Bang happened and the universe exploded into being. Could there be some force that causes the Big Bang in other universes? If that force is outside of our own universe, it could theoretically be affected by an outside force. Maybe our universe is the first to collapse, and the Big Bang that created us is felt throughout the multiverse. All of a sudden, the Big Bang occurs again and again, causing new universes to explode into being. These new universes would be born with their own unique properties, possibly even having different laws of physics. It would be like starting a new game of cosmic Monopoly. Each universe would have its own version of Earth and every planet in the solar system. They would all have their own unique cultures, histories, and governments. Maybe you would visit the home dimension of a certain omnipotent wizard named Gary. But we don't want to spoil any fan theories for you. The only problem with this scenario is that once the Big Bang occurred in your universe, you would be long dead, so you probably wouldn't notice anything unusual happening. How do you destroy an infinite amount of realities without destroying anything? The answer? Think about a scenario where you could travel back in time and kill your father before your parents met. That would obviously be a bad idea, because it would prevent you from ever being born. But if you managed to do it anyway, you might just change the course of history forever. It might not even matter if you killed your dad because somehow you still exist in this new timeline. You could even go back further and kill your grandfather before your father was conceived, but then someone else would take his place. Paradoxes are messy things. But what if instead of killing your relatives, you went back in time and prevented the Big Bang? How would that work? Well, here's where things get difficult to explain. If you stopped the Big Bang from happening, you would simultaneously stop the creation of your universe and erase yourself from existence. But if you've never existed, then how could you have traveled back in time to prevent the Big Bang? This paradox could destroy the multiverse by unraveling the very concept of time. At some point, the multiverse would have to break its own rules in order to collapse. That would tear open the boundaries between realities and bring about utter destruction. So perhaps the only way the multiverse could be destroyed is if someone found a way to cheat reality itself. Now watch. Multiverse Explained. This changes everything. Or check out, what will the world look like in 200 years?